Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
The podcast that's about freaky people, freaky creatures, freaky things, all that good stuff.
The unsolved and the unsettling.
Ooh, yes.
Will we be smart enough to remember that next week?
Nope. No, we sure won't. Will we ever be smart enough to write down an intro that we read consistently each time?
Maybe.
Could be.
Someday.
Before we go any further, we're going to say this is not safe for work. This is not safe for little ears. There will be language. There's often talk of serial killers and other maniacal bad things. So just have discretion who you listen to this around.
Listener discretion is advised.
That's right. And there's profanity.
Lots.
We're not sorry.
No. We're not fucking sorry.
That's right. No shit.
I am a ray of fucking sunshine. And on that note, I am MB Partlow. I am a writer. I am a retail worker. I am a insane person. I am a planner. It's driving me this last year and this coming year driving me crazy because I can't plan anything.
No.
That's the source of a lot of my discontent. It's like, what is the fucking point of making plans that you're going to have to alter in 10 minutes?
I know, usually I sat down and did my calendar for the year and everything, and I'm like,
I don't know. It's all question marks.
Right. So, yeah, I am Shannon Lawrence, and I am a student and writer and mom and a podcaster, in case you didn't know.
Oh, yeah, podcast.
FYI. That's about it.
For your FYI.
For your FYI. That's right. Finished the big bad class last week. Feeling very happy about that.
Yay!
It was funny. So I'm the consummate overachiever. And I was thinking the other day, I was like, how does one get to the point where they stop thinking they have to be perfect at everything they do? Where it's okay to not be perfect at everything they do?
I don't know, but when you figure it out, will you share it with me?
I was we all have a mentor at WGU, which is where I go to school. And I have to talk to him on the phone once a week. And I was talking to him before this test because I was all ready to go to take the test on Monday, and I freaked out because I looked at course chatter and they're like, it's the hardest test ever. And then it was IT management, and an IT guy comes on and he goes, yeah, I have a long background in IT. It was hard for me. And I was like, oh, crap. And I'd been feeling pretty cocky because I knew a lot of the stuff we were going over. And so then instead I spent 4 days studying, terrified that I might actually fail a test. And the thing is, you can fail the test. You can retake the test. It's not like I'm out of school if I fail the test, but I am not okay with failing the test and having to retake it.
I get it.
And I'm talking to him, and he just starts laughing, and he says, you remind me of my twin sister. And it's not the first time he said it. He was like, we could have the same class. I wouldn't study. She was smarter than me, but she would just study. And she'd be like, I'm not ready. And he said, I would tell her, you've been studying for 7 days straight. That's all you've been doing. That's 24 hours a day. That's what you've been doing. I haven't studied, and I know I'm going to pass it. You're going to pass it. And he said she always was anxious. And I was like, yeah, no matter what, I'm going to be anxious before the test. I'm going to be wondering if I'm going to pass the damn test. I passed the damn test. It was no problem. But I could have taken it 3 days earlier. But yeah, all right.
I'm the same way. Before I do something new, I want to ask everybody who's ever done it for all the information, all the input, everything I could possibly expect in any circumstance. And then after it's something I've done 2 or 3 times, I'm like, what the fuck was wrong with me? Why was I so worried that I couldn't...
starting the podcast. It took us a couple months to start the podcast.
And then we just sat down and
started babbling because that's what we do.
Yes, we did. Not speaking of babbling, but kind of. Speaking of bad language, did you watch any of the history of swearing on Netflix?
Yes, I've watched the first 2.
I binged the entire thing. I think it's 5 episodes the first night because they're short episodes. I loved it.
They start with fuck, and I'm like, well, there's only downhill from fuck, but
they talk about the context, and it just is so. What was the second one? Was the second one bitch?
Oh my gosh, I don't.
Or was it hell?
No. It wasn't hell.
I can't even remember now what all 5 of them were, but except one of them's dick.
Oh, really?
It is such a good show. And the fact that they got Nicolas Cage who'd be the sort of narrator.
Perfect. Like him and Samuel L. Jackson would have been perfect together if they wanted two of them.
Yes.
But yeah, it's funny.
So that is what really made me feel good was, because everybody had been talking about it on Facebook, was knowing that as I was watching it that night, probably hundreds of writing acquaintances were also watching it at this. Everybody's been watching it in the last week.
Oh yeah. So. I think I started watching it the first day I heard about it, which was maybe the first day it was on there. We watched like 2 episodes, then I was like, okay, I gotta go study. But yeah, it was fabulous. All the people that they got to sit there and talk about it so earnestly. There was one expert who was talking, and she was just this, I don't know, that she looked like this mundane, quiet little person, and yet she's extolling fuck, and she's...
There were 2 women. Yeah. Which woman? The one with the blue hair, or the purple hair, or the other one?
No, the other one.
The older woman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where it just seemed so weird every time it came out of her face, but she was just very seriously discussing it. And it was just every time I was all, whoa.
I love those women.
Yes.
I want their job. And they probably never in a million years thought, I'm going to take this job because someday I'm going to be on Netflix.
Right. I'm going to be on a television show with all these famous people who are talking about a profane word.
Yes.
What did you watch this week other than that? Anything?
Well, yes, I did. So I watched 2 things, one of which was delightful and the other was a bitter disappointment.
Oh.
So on BBC America, they have a show called The Watch, which is based ever so loosely on Terry Pratchett's works about the City Watch. And it is so... I watched it and I was so confounded by my own reaction to it, because there were elements of it that I was like, okay, but there were other elements of it that confused me and others that just angered me. So I went on to Consolation, that it's a Facebook group, and it's for people who go to any and all kinds of cons, but because everything was canceled.
Okay, I'm on there.
Okay.
I was thinking actual Consolation.
Oh, no.
Like...
So it's this Facebook group, and I went on there and I posted, has anybody watched? Has anybody seen this yet? Because I have, and I'm not sure what I think. And I was just wondering what other people thought. I am still getting responses. A week later, I am still getting multiple responses every day. And almost everybody who loves Terry Pratchett said, what is this steaming pile of excrement?
I feel like maybe... Now you know how those people who were like big into the comic world,
yes,
who bitch about Marvel and all of that,
yes,
and how they feel, which I'm not big in the comic world, so I'm like, I like it.
But it took elements from so many different storylines and jammed them together. And somebody said, could you watch it if you divorce yourself from the fact that it's supposed to be Terry Pratchett's world? Could you enjoy it that way? And I said, I don't think you could understand the show if you didn't have that background, because there's so much insider stuff.
So they've basically made it for people who read him, but
they pissed
y'all
off.
Hate it.
They pissed off 99.9% of the fans.
All right, that looks like a huge miss.
And his daughter, who's in charge of his
estate.
His estate. Thank you. I was going to say legend, and I knew that was the wrong word. She is like, I want nothing whatsoever to do with this. It's a pile of steaming excrement.
Wow. All right.
It's just...
That's terrible.
And I look at some of the changes and I go, but why? And it was supposed to be to make it more inclusive, but I'm like, they took the one popular figure that was a middle-aged, plus-size woman and made her... she looks like a high fashion model. And she's tall... and gorgeous.
So let's just completely take away that limited representation then. Yeah.
Thanks. Just erase me and my big ass. What have you watched?
We went to the Redbox, because we were like, we just need something new so we can pretend there's new things. So we got Love and Monsters, I think it's called.
Oh, what is that?
Or Of Love and Monsters. And it's the story of this kid. So the apocalypse has basically happened, and it's a comet or something that rains down radioactivity or something that morphs all the cold-blooded creatures, right? So giant cockroaches and right.
No,
I was delighted that there was no giant snake that they had in it at any point. I was like, as big as those puppies would be, they'd be covering the ground, you know. But anyway, and they're all living in bunkers, and he reaches his girlfriend from. They had separated. They'd gone with their families when everything was happening. And they're talking, and he decides that he's going to travel, take this 8-day voyage to go get to where her bunker, basically, bunker to bunker. But the problem with him is he freezes. He can't defend himself. So he's the cook in the bunker. He just kind of cooks for everybody, milks the cow, takes care of all that stuff, because the rest of them are like warrior people.
How old is he? Ish. I mean, are we talking 14
late teens?
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
Because he was still living with his family and everything. I don't know if they were in school or not. But, yeah, so it was entertaining. Yeah, it was fun. It was some good shut off your brain and enjoy it. There was a giant toad that...
Ew.
There's an adorable dog who saves him from something at the beginning. And then they travel together.
Of course.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
Good. Have you seen Yearly Departed yet?
No, but I did finally see the trailer for it. I'm in.
It's really good. It's on
Amazon?
It's either on, I think it is on Amazon. I think it is on Amazon Prime. It's all these comedians who are talking about the things that we lost in 2020. Like they're burying the year, and then each one gets up and talks about an aspect that we lost in 2020. So the first one, and Tiffany Haddish is in it, and I love her.
Yeah.
Watch it all the way to the credits, because they show some of how they filmed it. Because it looks like they're all in the room together, and they are not.
Oh.
That, I thought, was incredibly cleverly done.
There's been some really clever movie making.
Yes. And one of them says, farewell to pants, because nobody wears them anymore.
Just sweatpants.
I do have jeans on today.
You do?
I have actual...
You're dressed in real clothes.
I am.
What's wrong with you?
It's cold out. And my thing is always, if I get stuck in a ditch, because the roads it snowed here yesterday, sweatpants are not going to keep you warm if you have to walk to somebody's house or flag down help.
You know, right now I'm burning up like a furnace inside, and I have been for a couple months for some reason. I mean, it's good, but it's also bad. Like, I'm actually pondering asking my husband, let's turn down the thermostat. I want to just be able to snuggle up in a blanket, because usually I run so cold.
Yeah, you do.
So cold. So I'm realizing that I'm missing, even though I hate being cold, I'm missing my usual winter of being covered in blankets, and I haven't been able to wear my footy pajamas, like my giant onesie.
I still remember
because they're too hot.
The first time you brought those to a conference, and I looked at those and I was still hot flashing at that time, and I was like, I broke a sweat just looking at them.
I know. You could wear them now. No, not yet.
No. I still sleep hot.
Okay.
Which is tough when you get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and realize the house is really not that warm at 2 a.m. No, it's not.
Houses are not. Well, unless you leave your heat pumping all night.
And neither is the toilet seat.
Yeah, I hate that part the most.
When you're trying not to wake all the way up.
I don't care how warm I am, that cold toilet seat is still dismaying.
So, have you read anything good?
I finished David R. Slayton's White Trash Warlock.
Yay.
And here's the thing about that, worth mentioning, because I got to give it to my daughter, who she will say she's on the rainbow. And she's out, and she comes to me whenever she finds something that has representation in it.
Yes.
So even if it's not representing her directly, she's like, they have a bi character in this, and they have she's just so excited about this. And so I was able to give her the book and say, not only is there a main character who is gay, but it was written by somebody who is gay, and that somebody is somebody that I've been trying for 2 years to have the time to coordinate something outside of pandemic, and I'm like, so eventually you're going to meet him. And she is so excited. So
yay.
I gave her that yesterday. So that was neat.
Such a good book.
Yeah.
It was a fun read.
It was. I liked the elves. Well, I liked the female elf Argent the bestest.
I liked the little slightly different take on things.
Yeah.
So.
And his boyfriend.
Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah.
What have you read?
I like the whole thing. I read Of Mice and Minestrone.
Oh.
It's Hap and Leonard, The Early Years by Joe R. Lansdale.
Oh.
And it's short stories about, so he writes a series of sort of mysteries. They're not really mysteries, but that's how I first was introduced to them. About these two characters, Hap and Leonard. And
what are they considered?
I have delightful. I don't know.
Foibles?
They're just wonderful books. I love them so much. The writing is so good. But this was a collection of short stories about them in their early years. Because when you meet them in the first book, and I'm going to... Two Bear Mambo? I can't remember if that's the first book in the series or not. But this takes them back to their teen years and like when Hap gets out of prison and Leonard comes home from Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
Their first meeting after that. And it's really good. I mean, I can't say enough good about Joe Lansdale's writing. I absolutely love it. And he was one of the few writers at Pikes Peak Writers Conference that I actually had a squee moment.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm standing there talking to him and I said, excuse me, can I have 1 minute to be a fangirl? And he is so laid back. He's like, sure. I was like, oh my God, I love your work so much. And then I was like, okay, I'm done now.
That was a TV show I enjoyed. I think that was on Netflix, wasn't it?
That was probably the best adaptation of a book I have ever seen.
There you go.
To TV or movie.
Go watch that again, and you'll feel better after that. Just forget that the Cherry Pratchett one happened. The Watch or
That's
whatever.
True. And the music in the Hap and Leonard adaptation was spot on. I just thought that was
Who is the female actress? Well, there
she
you go.
Is
That was redundant, wasn't it?
I
know. I can't remember her name, but I'm always in awe of her.
Mad Men.
Yes,
the
redhead. The one with the very definition of an hourglass figure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
Can't remember it.
No.
But yeah, I could probably watch her in anything. I started watching that show that she was in where the three women make with the money and then they get in a whole lot of trouble. Oh, they robbed the store that one of them works at.
What was that show?
Oh, God. It's gone. It's all gone.
Yeah, I'm like, halfway through this episode, we're going to come up, we're going to shout out her name. Blah, blah, blah. It's blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Oh, but she is, and there's a scene where she's walking across the yard toward Hap and Leonard, and I just looked at Joe and I was like, that is just sex on a stick. It was so, and she's just walking across the yard.
She's like wearing jeans and
or like maybe capri pants and a blouse.
Yep.
And it's not anything revealing. She's not trying to be, it's just the way she moves. It was like, I don't even think I have all the parts she has. It was like,
it led me down a rabbit hole though. I was like, oh man, that poor girl. I want to see like a picture of her as a teenager, as a preteen, because you know that she developed early and you know it was this awful, horrible.
Yes.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, I thought about that the other day when I saw her in something and I'm like, why does my head go to these places? I saw her in something recently. I don't remember what it was. Like, and when I say recently, it's really within the last few days because I don't remember anything beyond that. And honestly, I don't remember that. So
I think we're ready to. Oh, but I can. So we're getting ready to kick off here. You're going to go first. So this is going to air on February 17th, and it just so happens that February 18th is Hate Florida Day. And everybody's like, "What's wrong with Florida?" Well, no, nobody's saying that because we all know there's a lot wrong with Florida. Okay, why this came about is because the rest of the country. The rest of the U.S. usually is deep in the throes of winter on February 18th and is looking at the weather maps and looking at Florida and being like, I fucking hate Florida. Because it's like 75 and breezy and we're like up to our nipples in snowbanks. So Florida ranks as the #1 warmest state in the country for the entire year.
Okay.
Now, in the winter, Hawaii is number one, and in the summer, Louisiana is number one.
Ugh.
But for year-round, it's Florida.
They also, I think, are the ones that beat us with the most lightning strikes in a year.
Oh.
Colorado's like number 2 or somewhere up there.
We get them because of the mountains. They get them because of the golf clubs.
Oh, there you go. There's a theory.
All right, so you get to kick off.
All right. So I'm going to be covering Henry Flagler and Haunted St. Augustine. This was another one of those topics that I just got fascinated by and went too far into, but I edited. Because he was a big business person. And it turns out he set some of the things that I've been studying in this class because I'm going for a business administration management degree, right? And so it was fascinating reading this stuff. And he's also the reason that we have an ethics section in every single freaking class that we take. Okay. Henry Morrison Flagler was born January 2nd, 1830 in Hopewell, New York, the son of a Presbyterian minister. At 14, he went to work for his uncle at a store in Ohio. In 1862, he started a salt mining company with his brother-in-law called York Salt Company in Michigan. He was all over the place. He'd just go where the business was, It went under during the Civil War because they actually had no fucking idea what they were doing. They lost a ton of money. They were doing salt mining and also production of, salt to sell out to other people. And they just didn't know what they were doing. So,
okay.
His stepbrother had invested in this business, so he basically lost his stepbrother's money. So he goes to work for his stepbrother at the grain business that he owns. And while he's there, he meets John D. Rockefeller. Now, people aren't going to know the name Henry Flagler, which is interesting now that I've learned about him, but they're going to know Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Flagler's stepbrother invested money in a business that Rockefeller was building, and he gave the condition that, all right, well, my stepbrother Flagler, he needs to be your partner, and he's going to be controlling my business interests. So ultimately, they end up creating Standard Oil Corporation.
Oh my God.
Yep. The business continued growing, and they expanded into kerosene and oil in other states, and they got themselves involved in what it was called cartel. It wasn't like mafia cartel, but it was this cartel of business people, basically, involving railroads, and it was this whole big complicated thing that I'm not going to go into. But in short, they were working with the railroads to get their stuff everywhere, guarantee that they're getting that stuff everywhere, and to give them like a 50% discount, but raise the prices on everybody else, right?
Oh.
So other people got onto this, and they realized these are the people that are responsible for the fact that it's costing me a fortune to ship everything. So they're busted. The cartel loses their charter, and all their cheaper dealing disappears. They no longer have this deal. So they start getting into like the railroad and shipping stuff themselves because these two are they're going to go full steam ahead no matter what. It was fascinating. I mean,
they're just throwing stuff against the wall waiting for something to stick.
They are, but they were very smart. They were very savvy. And it ends up, Rockefeller gives Flagler all the credit for being the brains behind the business.
Oh my God.
So how about that right there? And I'm like, and again, I'd never heard of him as far as I remember, right? Just credit, but still. So this didn't stop them. In 1872, after continuing to buy out their competitors, Standard Oil owned 22 Cleveland competitors, leaving only 4 people that were not now part of Standard Oil.
Wow.
It ended up being termed the Cleveland Conquest, and some called it the Cleveland Massacre. They basically monopolized Cleveland.
It's like cable companies now.
Yep.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. And so other competitors quickly had to give in to them. So when they wanted something, they were going to get it. It should be known their victory involved a lot of swindling, a lot of backdoor deals. They were the original. They're what Trump he probably has pictures of them up in his house. They were not honest men. They were the epitome of what we look at these days and see as big business. Mm-hmm. They, politicians in the back pocket. Just
robber barons.
Yes. And again, incredibly bright and really good at this. They found so many ways to do so many things. At that time, you couldn't have one business and have it have interests in multiple states. So they had to have a business or like a corporation for each state for the business. Okay. And they ended up creating a corporation over the corporations. Like they created so much that is current,
Wow.
because they were so desperate to make money. Anyway, by 1880, they had a vast monopoly, refining over 90% of the oil in the U.S. In addition, they were producing every oil-based product they could, including Vaseline, paint, chewing gum, tar, so on and so forth. They went on to put others out of business, and finally they got indicted by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 1879, followed rapidly by other states once that they got called out there.
Right.
New York World called them the most cruel, impudent, pitiless, and grasping monopoly that ever fastened upon this country.
Wow.
They did what all shrewd businessmen do and implied it wasn't them. Oh, no, it's not us. That bad dealing, whenever we discover that, we root it right out and we get rid of it. We fix that problem. Bullshit. But this is what they always say, right? It wasn't me.
Yeah.
They actually, in addition to everything else they created, they're responsible for the fact that there's an oil futures market. The whole investment. Yeah. They are the ones who started things like having certificates that they could sell to fund things, and that. So they started so much.
I'm laughing because I keep having these expressions on my face like, oh my God, really? And I realize nobody can see that.
No,
nobody can
I know
see me going, what?
It's just, I don't know. I was just astonished reading through.
Yeah.
And again, I went and looked deeper into this stuff, and it was just like, wow.
We learn so much doing these podcasts.
We really do.
Inadvertently.
And I love it.
Yeah.
I love it every time I get sucked down that rabbit hole. It's bad, but it's good. So their goal was actually to control the world's oil. They got really, really close. At their peak, they controlled, in the world, 90%.
Holy shit.
That was their peak. But the rest of the world started making progress then. There were oil fields found elsewhere. Because for a while, I think it was Pennsylvania, it said that was the producer of most of the oil for a good long time.
Damn.
So once other people started getting in there, they start kind of going down. I mean, it's not like they fell apart and didn't exist anymore.
Right.
But in 1911, the Supreme Court found, and I'm going to quote this. Am I? Yes. Found Standard Oil Company in violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act, which had come to be under Teddy Roosevelt. They said they were in a legal monopoly. They had to break up their overarching corporation into 34 separate companies. Wikipedia listed a few of them, and I pulled out the ones that I was like, oh yeah, we're all going to recognize these. So they became, Standard Oil became Conoco, ExxonMobil, Chevron, BP, Pennzoil, because they weren't just doing,
Right.
And it's basically everybody who's running today. Yeah, that was them. It all started under one set of partners that just took everything over. Because they would just buy. They would just eat up the other companies. And they were so predatory. But anyway, well before the business fell apart, his wife Mary got sick, and it was recommended they go to Jacksonville, Florida. For whatever reason. They said, it'll help her. She'll be relaxed. The air, the sea,
The mosquitoes.
Okay, right.
The yellow fever.
The
ticks.
I almost did the Huguenot Cemetery, and they had this massive yellow fever dust, and they actually had to close down the cemetery. But anyway, he ended up falling in love with St. Augustine, Florida later. But his wife dies in 1881. He marries her caregiver, Ida Alice. Yeah.
Huh.
He was also a bit of a philanderer. We'll see. So they go to St. Augustine. This is when he falls in love with it. There's a new hotel, and it's made by a concrete maker. I didn't write down his name, I don't think, but it was called the Hotel Zoraida. And he tries to buy the hotel for his honeymoon. Well, yes, I would like to buy this hotel.
As one does.
And the guy was like, nah, I built it because I want to own it. But they become friends. And at this time, since I gave the history of the company, at this time he's on the board of directors for Standard Oil, but he doesn't have to be there day to day.
Okay.
At all. He's the VP. So he's just kind of traveling around doing his things, sending his correspondence, and that's what he does now because it's its own machine at this point. In 1885, they moved to St. Augustine for good, and he builds his own hotel.
Of course.
With the help from the other guy, though. They become friends. This guy is an expert in concrete. So he builds the Ponce de Leon Hotel. And he decides, he's like, this place is amazing. People don't understand how amazing this is. He wants to make it the American Riviera. So he's decided to make this a destination for everybody. He starts buying up short line railroads in the area and ends up creating the Florida East Coast Railway.
Oh, it's coming together now.
Yeah. He used something called convict leasing, which was what those in the South were using to replace slave labor. They were no longer supposed to use it, right? So it involved working convicts to the bone during the day, returning them to the prison at night. By the time he was done hoping to create the American Riviera, he'd forged further south, building more hotels in St. Augustine, expanding transportation into Daytona, Palm Beach, Miami, Biscayne Bay, and ultimately Miami, where he did become known as the father of Miami. By 1912, he'd also created the Florida Overseas Railroad and extended himself into Key West, which actually was already a populous city. But then in all these places, he's building hotels and stuff. In addition to convict leasing, he used something called debt peonage. Peonage.
How do you spell it?
Peonage.
Okay. What the hell is that? I have never heard of that.
That's the thing. I went and I looked it up, and so I have the definition just directly from Wikipedia, because I'm like, I could try to reword this, or I can just quote it. Created to preserve the white supremacist racial order and to address the South's labor shortages, these systems targeted African Americans, stealing their labor and entrapping them in state-sanctioned forms of involuntary servitude. So, I mean, it was just, all right, well, you owe me. I'm going to help you with this thing, right? I mean, it's indentured servitude, basically. Okay. So these two systems persisted for 50 years following the Civil War. An investigative journalist found out, alerting the Justice Department, but Flagler and his allies, I mean, they all had money, right? They managed to whitewash the whole thing. They used the newspapers, some of which he owned, to cover it all up. It would take until 1923 for Florida to stop using convict leasing. Wow. And what astounded me is I looked it up, and that was years after states like Mississippi and Georgia had already stopped.
Oh, wow.
Florida was the more back-asswards than I realized. Unfortunately, as with so many of these men, he was also largely responsible for building up much of the Atlantic seaboard down the Florida line. He built bridges, churches, schools, roads, canals. He donated tons of money. He probably built anything else you can think of in the area. He helped and encouraged farmers. He set up farmers along the railroad route. I mean, he did all this stuff that in the end ends up being beneficial, right?
Right.
And yet he was just a piece of shit. In all of his pursuits, he built the groundwork for much of what we have and do today in the states in which he lived and worked. I mean, he just, in terms of business, in terms of what he did in Florida, it's astounding to think about one person being so formative in all of that. Having that much impact. Yeah. Wow. And of course, he's a shitty person. So there's statues of him all over the South, and it's like, ugh. So, Mr. Philanderer has his second wife declared insane by a doctor friend of his. I could not find anything saying whether she was actually insane when she went in, but it would appear she was truly insane by the time she died. Wow. In the institution. But yeah, he had a doctor friend. Dr. Friend declares her insane. She's institutionalized in 1896. Wait, when did they get married? It was, his wife died in 1881, and they got married pretty immediately. So they were married for 15 years. Yeah. He starts having an affair with another woman, as if he wasn't before. But anyway, right? In 1901, he convinces the Florida governor to allow divorce in the case of incurable insanity. Because he can't divorce her. He couldn't remarry. So the governor, this passes. The law was repealed in 1905, with him having been the only one to have taken advantage of it. There was an entire law basically created for this man to divorce his poor crazy wife in the insane asylum. Who may or may not have been... Absolutely. Yeah. Oh. So he dies in 1913 after falling down a flight of steps in his Palm Beach estate. That sounds like an accident. I mean... He has been honored many times with statues, tributes, museums, and places named after him. If you go down there, especially in St. Augustine, you can't escape hearing about him. So there's even a city in Colorado named after him. Flagler, Colorado. Oh my God. His third wife, the one he cheated with, Mary Lily Keenan Flagler, was from North Carolina. The Keenan Flagler Business School of UNC Chapel Hill is named for the two of them. Interestingly, there's a murder mystery surrounding her death that one of us may have to look into, possibly at the hands of her husband after Flagler, who was named Robert Worth Bingham. Bingham used her inheritance to buy the Louisville Courier-Journal newspaper. So that one I also got sucked into a little bit. And I was like, I will not look up the murder mystery. So I did not. So why have I talked about Flagler when we're here today to talk? I mean, other than we're talking about Florida and he basically built half of it.
Okay, so you could say he is a monster.
He is a monster. I think he's caused his wife will certainly, his second wife will certainly say he caused mayhem. But in his wake, he left many a haunted building in St. Augustine. And that's actually how I even happened across him. I was looking up hauntings in Florida because I wanted to see if there's anything interesting to talk about. St. Augustine is considered the oldest continuous settlement in the United States. So it's already bound to have, there's got to be a billion ghost stories down there. And there are. I mean, I was finding stuff left and right. It's just like Savannah and New Orleans in that there's all these ghost tours and stuff like that you can go on. So, the first that I'm going to talk about that's haunted is known as the Old Jail Museum now. The site Old City Ghosts called it, I just like their description, so I had to quote it. The equivalent of a jail crafted in the PTSD night terrors of that guy from Deliverance that goes gonzo whenever he hears a banjo, met that quota of phantoms and went overboard.
Okay.
That description went overboard once I was reading about the actual hauntings. I was like, calm down. It's not The Shining. It's not The Overlook.
That is my response a lot of times when I'm reading about a haunting is, calm down.
Oh, calm down.
Just calm down.
It's a draft. Fix the window. Okay.
It's teenagers.
That's right. And chicken coops that don't exist anymore.
Yes.
All right. So remember the Ponce de Leon Hotel.
Yes.
His first building in St. Augustine. In order to build that, he had to have the city's jail torn down. So he offered to build a $10,000 jail. He was like, hey, this is an eyesore. This is gross. I don't like it. And this is not what I want people to see from my hotel. Because it was on top of a hill or something. So he says, I will build a $10,000 jail. He had it designed by the same folks who built Alcatraz. That's the PJ Poly Jail Company.
I was like, known for their
comfort and picturesqueness. But he did require that it be picturesque.
Okay.
So, because he wanted everything beautiful in that city. He didn't want any eyesores. He wanted the tourists to come and see only pretty things. So the outside of the jail is a pleasant blue-green 2-story building. When I went to the Visit St. Augustine site, which, by the way, says nothing but good about Flagler.
Of course.
It was great reading their stuff. It says it was built in a Romanesque revival style, so it would look like a Victorian house. Which I looked at it. It's not really look like anyway. The only thing giving it away as a prison were the bars and the windows and the gallows out back. But they were hidden out back, see? Inside there were no bathrooms. So they had a bucket they passed around to whoever needed it.
Okay. There were no bathrooms?
Nope. I assume there were the sheriff lived in the jail with his family, like his children and his dogs, and I assume that they did, but where the prisoners were, there were no bathrooms. And they were just these teeny cells, very uncomfortable. They slept in Spanish, it was just wood with Spanish moss. You could sleep on. Very comfortable place.
Yeah.
So this became the county jail. So they were cramming all of there was a maximum security area. There was a death row. There was a women's prison in there that had 12 women.
Holy crap.
It could fit 72 total prisoners. But they had at their height, I think, 72 male prisoners and 12 women. And then plus the sheriff's family living in their little section. It was from this prison that he got a lot of his convict lease workers.
Of course. For
the railroad. And they would send others of them out to plantations as day labor and stuff like that.
Doesn't Walmart do that now in China?
Pretty much. It's pretty much.
Well, we know where they got the idea.
We've given so many people ideas. This was such a great country. The 12 women in prison there were used not only to cook and clean in the prison and for the sheriff's family who lived within the walls, but they were also raped by the guards and sold out for sex. They were made into sex workers. Oh. In fact, the women there hadn't even necessarily done anything wrong. So what they would do to make sure if they had these basically maids and people to bring them extra money was if there was a woman who was destitute, if there was a woman who wasn't mentally well, who was out on the streets, if there was a woman who was insanely pretty and caught their eye and just happened to have nobody to protect her or vouch for her, she'd end up in that prison. So once it was discovered that prisoners lived no longer than 2 years there, that was the average.
Holy shit.
Succumbing to diseases and malnutrition, they had to start fixing the numbers, not the prison, by classifying prisoners who died as escapees. So they just say, they were out on this work detail and they disappeared, so they escaped. They would also ship them to other prisons right before. Like, they were like, this dude's totally about to die. Ship him to another prison. They'd get there. They'd die. It counted against that prison's numbers.
Yes.
They even would sometimes give pardons if they had nothing else to do, so that the person would just be kicked out on the streets and would die in the street. But they were bringing too much attention.
Well, that warms the cockles of my heart.
Oh, yeah. So, too much unwanted attention. They did whatever they could to make sure that they weren't having all those deaths there. In addition, 8 men were hanged via death row between 1891 and 1953. 1953 is when it was no longer a jail. The old jail is on several ghost tours. It's been on Ghost Hunters and Kindred Spirits. The laundry list of hauntings include orbs, ghostly footsteps, nasty smells of sewage, no kidding.
Yeah.
Or no shit.
You can't ever get that smell.
People have reported smelling this strong, sickly, sweet smell, which makes me think of how they describe the sense of, like, infection, festering wounds, you know?
Ew.
The barking of dogs, because he did have dogs as pets. A ghost that walks through a door and disappears, and it goes through the hallway and out the front door. One of the big thing is physical sensations. People report being grabbed, having their hair pulled, and some get scratches when they leave. There's cold spots. And there's a solitary confinement cell that one of the places likes to have people. They'll have somebody go in there alone, and they say that they see a shadowy figure, and the figure will scratch them or attack them.
Put that on our list.
Yeah. We need to just go to St. Augustine, apparently, and just visit all the buildings, because he probably built them all.
We could spend quite some time there, it sounds like.
I bet. And it's also supposed to be super pretty. I mean, the next one is the building currently housing Flagler College, which was originally the Ponce de Leon Hotel. So, yeah, it was like a 520-room hotel, I think. He built other hotels for the spillover. But it became then a giant college. Let's see. He got his friend Thomas Edison to put in electricity, making the hotel the first in the entire world.
Oh, my gosh.
To have that feature. And to have been built with electricity in mind. So, I mean, it was done from the very beginning. It's not something they were adding in afterwards.
Wow.
So it took years to build the hotel, but it opened in 1888. One thing, I didn't write it down, but there was a little funny thing. The guests were afraid of the electricity. Like, they wouldn't turn on the switches. So he had to hire people to turn on the lights for people.
Like me in your bathroom?
Yes.
I'm like, there's new switches? I don't know how to work them.
Yes, my bathroom is now smart. It's part of the Internet of Things, as I learned about.
Smarter than I am.
It can be turned off from the phone. So technically, I could have just sat here and turned off the light on you while you were in there.
You could have, if you want me to pee on your floor.
If I want to hear the screams. I mean, I do. So the hotel stayed popular until about 1910. But what's funny is it didn't hurt him, because it was his push to the south that stole tourism from St. Augustine. And they all started going down to Miami and Palm Beach instead. So before then, famous guests had included 2 presidents, Mark Twain, Babe Ruth, and all these other folks. I mean, and obviously Thomas Edison, the greatest thief of ever, of all time.
He was good with that.
Yep, he was really good at that. During World War I, it became a Coast Guard training center under the federal government, and then Flagler College in 1968. So that's just, there's been a whole lot of human traffic through this massive building. So of course it's haunted.
There's got to be something.
And considering it didn't say who built that hotel, but come on. You know that it was like convict leasing going into parts of that too. I understand that he brought in skilled workers because he wanted it to be amazing, but yeah, we know that there were plenty of, probably people died building that hotel for him, but it didn't say that anywhere. To be very clear, alleged by me, he used some manner of slave labor. All right, the college students are the ones reporting hauntings, including a woman in black who stands at the base of a bed and stares at its occupant but doesn't do anything. What is fun, I found a site, so it's one of my sources. And it's just college students telling their stories of the stuff they've dealt with there. So that was kind of fun. And again, something that I was like, okay, I need to go to bed. I'm going to stop reading all these.
It's hard to stop sometimes.
It is. Because, I mean, I could have traced this I was like, I'm going to look at the Palm Beach house he died in and find out what goes to there. And I'm going to do this. And I'm like, stop it. Let's just make it St. Augustine. So his second wife, who died of consumption in the sanitarium, wanders the halls ranting and raving.
Wasn't she supposed to be insane?
She was the crazy one. She died in the sanitarium, in the asylum.
Well, was she? Okay. But she also had consumption.
Well, I'm sure she got it there.
Well, yeah.
So she's supposed to wander the halls ranting. A mistress of Flagler's, who hanged herself from a chandelier in the hotel, haunts a supply room. It wasn't a supply room then. The fourth floor was like the yeah.
I'm like, why would there be a chandelier in the supply room? That would...
It's not there anymore. But yeah, her room was on the fourth floor. He kept her there. You know, I'm sure there were others.
Yes.
And he kept his mistresses. They had their own rooms, you know. It's the whole, I'm going to buy you an apartment in New York. So she haunts the poor kids that go in the storage room. And she throws things. She screams. Stuff will move across the room. So apparently there was the dust up. And she hanged herself.
A dust up.
It was a bit of...
Again,
it was a tiff.
I cry foul. Did she hang herself?
Did she hang herself, or was she hanged, in fact?
Yes.
A woman in blue, thought to be someone else's mistress, because of course, we're talking big people at this hotel, yes. Right? There were probably... The fourth floor was probably just all mistresses. So
right.
they could go up and visit. So the story is that he was going to leave his wife for her. She thought she was pregnant, and he basically told her to go fuck herself. She ran away, tripped on her dress, broke her neck. Do you cry foul? Your face says you cry foul.
I do. How convenient for him.
That's right. For all of them. I wonder how many mistresses died there, not just Flagler's. So anyway, she wanders in her blue dress, just sadly, morosely, walking through the halls.
Perhaps moaning.
Oh. A young boy thought to have died as a guest of the hotel is seen. A bathroom door slams. The lights turned out on whoever is showering. It's great.
It's probably just a smart lace.
It probably is. Dorm beds that shake in the night. There's a ghost elevator operator that a bunch of people have reported. You have to have like a key card,
right,
to even get it to come down to you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sometimes it'll come down to the first floor and it opens and a voice says, "There you go."
What a pleasant ghost.
I know, right? And I'm like, cool, thanks. And somebody said, "We find it very handy when we've forgotten our key cards." Somebody else reported that in a bathroom, I think it might be the same one, the lights shut off in, they hear somebody walking in kind of doing the grunt. They called it the dad grunt, like when he lowers himself to the floor. And they hear the metal sound of like a toolbox being set on the ground. Oh. And then somebody will whistle. So they think it's just a serviceman who worked there. Who just, woo, and it's always the same little tune. They said, they didn't say what song it was. And there's the sound of a typewriter in one of the rooms. There's no ting, but there's
right.
And then they hear it slide back.
Carriage return.
That's right. And the scent of tobacco in that room.
Huh.
Finally.
Hemingway.
Huh? Yeah. Where is this house in Florida?
I think it's in the Keys.
Okay.
Key West.
Okay.
I think.
I'm sure they would. Well, I don't know what years anybody was alive, so. if they were alive at the same time. And of course, Flagler haunts the Ponce de Leon, and he just kind of harasses the students. You know, nothing major. He just chills in the college. He was probably a pervert. He's in the girls' dorms. Again, that's alleged. Allegedly. And by me. All right. There are plenty of ghosts in St. Augustine. And I'm betting had I gone deeper and deeper, I would have found all sorts that were in
Yes.
buildings that he built and stuff like that. So it's something that I'll probably just kind of look around in just for fun. Or when we go there.
Yeah.
Surely there must be a writers' conference there at some point.
Or nearby. There must be.
And since I didn't do my sources at the beginning, I stopped before I was writing them at the beginning, and now I know, but I have the links at the end. So I went to ghostsandgravestones.com, visit staugustine.com, oldcityghosts.com, and staugustineghosts.com, and Wikipedia for information on Henry Flagler himself.
Nice. Christina Hendricks.
Yes!
I looked up the actress's name.
I saw you do it. I saw you go, oh. Write it down.
Because I was like, I can see her, and it was going to bug me. So because you reminded me, I'll start with my sources, but I'm not going to list everyone individually because it's mainly newspapers or news stations, TV stations. Because I don't know how, I was like, what are some unusual things that have happened in Florida? So I'm counting this as mayhem, but you could count that, I suppose, as monsters if you really wanted to.
Fun.
In some of these. I'm not going to, that's the first one I looked up, but I have the most, so I'm going to save her till the end. There are a lot of very interesting driving under the influence arrests in Florida.
Yep.
So, I'm going to tell you about a few of them. When was it? In November 2017. In Port St. Lucie, which is on the East Coast north of Palm Beach, 56-year-old Kenneth Alshouse, or Alshouse, I'm not sure. He's 56. He was spotted on an access road on his red snapper riding lawnmower with a case of Budweiser on the deck of the
Oh, I think that's common.
Driving erratically. So his blood alcohol content, this is what kills me. His blood alcohol content was 3 times the legal limit. There was one, I can't remember if I wrote it down or not. There was one where it was like 5 times the legal limit. And they're like, we're really not sure how this person isn't dead.
They have no blood left. It's just beer.
Yeah, it is just an alcohol level. So this guy, I looked for follow-up information. I'm going to have to delve further into this to find out I wanted to know what the disposition of the case was. Okay. But in this case, I wasn't able to find out. This was his 4th DUI, and his lawnmower was the only thing he had left to drive.
Did they take away his lawnmower?
It didn't say.
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can take away their lawnmower. And I don't know that they took away his car. They took away his driver's license. Yes, he definitely did not. In Haines, Florida, so apparently riding mowers are pretty popular, as you speculated. And I could not get the date on this one. Gary Wayne Anderson was arrested for DUI. He was also on a lawnmower, but this time he actually struck a parked police cruiser. And he admitted to it.
Well, that wasn't me.
And said it was okay because he didn't do any damage. So, but he refused a sobriety test, and he had a riding lawnmower with a trailer behind it. It's not like you can hide that very easily. You can't duck down
It's just covered in cases of beer.
So he refused the field sobriety test. So they take him to the hospital. Again, 3 times the legal limit, and he had cocaine in his system.
Oh.
He claimed the police put the cocaine in his system.
They injected it.
He was apparently also yelling racial slurs. So let's talk about...
Hey, was he in D.C. this week?
So let's talk... Do I have both of the... I got to make sure I have both. So let's talk about schools.
Oh, God.
So in early April of 2017, a middle school math teacher named Tara Virgin...
Oh,
I mean, that's such a sad...
Miss Virgin.
Yeah. Was arrested in Tampa. The charge was allowing a 14-year-old to drive her to Waffle House because she was too drunk to drive. So kudos for not driving.
But what's the chart? Oh, he was
he was 14. He
yeah.
was unlicensed, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think it was child endangerment.
Do you?
So it was 11:15 at night. There was an open beer in the cup holder or in her lap. The stories differed a little bit there. It's a Sunday night, and the boy was her boyfriend's son.
Oh, God, I thought you were just going to stop at boyfriend, so...
Oh, no. It was her boyfriend's son. I was afraid it could take a really dark turn. It did not. So she had just gotten a job as a math teacher at the local high school. She'd been there 1 week and had previously worked as a math teacher in the middle school.
Had she been fired?
No. Well, she
just didn't have any chauffeurs because they were way too young.
But I'm like, who says I need some hash browns? So Bobby Joe, drive you to the Waffle House.
Yeah, total aside, my mom's dad, worked at a sawmill in Oregon for a long time. They lived in rural Oregon, and she used to drive him home because he'd fall asleep because he was working multiple jobs. Right. So it just made me think of that. But she almost got, at one point, she didn't put on the parking brake or something, and it was parked on this hill. And she started rolling backwards. And at the sawmills, they have the water with the logs sitting on top.
Yeah.
And it's like going under ice, right?
Yeah.
If you go under the logs, you don't get back up. So the car's rolling backwards.
Oh.
Her dad had to like run and jump in over her and like set the brake. But anyway, total aside, just made me think of that.
Wow. Okay, so yes. So this woman, will give her kudos for not driving, but... let me pour myself a beer and get in the car and you drive me, young man.
I mean, this is what toaster waffles are for.
Right?
When you're drunk at home.
So this week, on January 6th, it was first thing in the morning. So this wasn't not in reaction to anything. In Ocala, Florida, a woman was arrested for DUI at 8 a.m. in the drop-off lane at a middle school. Now, what's different is when you look at the more recent stuff like this, you can actually view the body cam footage.
Oh, yeah.
In some of these.
Yeah.
So she ran over a cone, which she denied, although it was still wedged under her car.
It jumped there.
And some of the parents had reported her because she was having a hard time keeping her vehicle in the drop-off line. And then when she stopped, she appeared to be falling asleep. Right? This is with her kids.
Child. I know.
Or kids in the car. So when the officer asks her for her license, she rummages through her wallet and hands him like a library card or a Costco card. Just hands him a card out of her wallet. So they finally get, and she's just belligerent. Mm-hmm. And the officer, this is like a textbook case of the officer going above and beyond, trying to talk, and it was a female officer. So she's trying to talk to this woman very politely, and the woman is not being nice at all. And she kept explaining, I would never have the patience do this. She kept explaining over and over again what needed to happen. I need you to do this. I need you to put the car in park. Well, let me drive over to the parking lot and then I'll park the car. No, ma'am. We need you to park your car, right? You have stopped your car. So we need you. So she finally puts the car in park. They're like, okay, we need you to turn the car off. Then it was, we need you to get out of the car. Once she got out of the car, it was like, okay, ma'am, I need you to sit down here on the curb. And she wouldn't stay down. She wouldn't stay sitting down. So they did eventually have to handcuff her.
Good.
This
is why I'm not a cop, but my siblings who are cops are just totally, myself and my oldest brother are a bit aggressive and have zero patience. Our siblings, very calm people, very reasonable people, and that is why they are the police in the family. And why at this point my brother has received many commendations and is actually in charge of training other cops in de-escalation
nice.
It's like the things that they should be learning. You know?
Yes.
So, but not me. No, I'd be like, listen, bitch! You're gonna kill one of these other kids here. Your kids are watching you act like an imbecile.
And the officer kept using that. Okay, we need you to get out of the car. Let's not do this in front of all the kids. Mm-hmm. Let's not do this in front of your kids. Let's not do this in front of the kids.
Let's not humiliate your children.
this woman was having and she was, I mean, slurring, shit-faced drunk at 8 a.m. So at first I got thinking about that, and I was like, okay, is she really?
Is she just still drinking from last night?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Do you get up early so you could get it all in before you go to school, or was this a carryover from the night before?
Yeah, do you just wake up and have it's mimosas. It's okay, it's breakfast.
It's breakfast.
I don't know. I also have zero patience for drunk people.
I am aware of this.
You are aware of this.
It's never been directed at me.
Well, you don't get. I don't do sloppy drunk.
Generally, I'm a delightful drunk, and then I say I'm going to sleep now, and I do. I tuck my happy ass into my own bed and say I'm going to go to sleep, and you can keep talking, but
and then 2 seconds later, fast asleep.
I know. Now, if you were going to kill me, it would be for that, not for.
That's true, and my husband is well aware that is why he will die someday.
I fell asleep too easily.
He will die for snoring when I can't sleep sometimes.
Yes. So, okay, the last one I have is the one I have the most information on. Because anyway, let me just tell you. And I got a little inside information on this one. So, in early November of 2017, it was the 3rd or 4th. It was actually the day before the first guy on the Red Snapper riding lawnmower. The day before. A Polk City woman was arrested for DUI on her horse, whose name was Bo Duke.
You can get a DUI on your horse?
In Lakeland, Florida. Now, Polk City is about halfway between Orlando and Tampa, and Lakeland is about 15 miles away. So she had ridden her horse about 15 miles on a busy road.
Oh, God. Poor horse.
She said she was going to buy spurs, I believe. So,
she got drunk and was like, this fucker needs to be spurred. Even though it rode on a road.
Yeah. So this was 53-year-old Donna Byrne. She was reported by a passerby, or more than one, who said she appeared confused and they thought she looked like she might be falling asleep. So when the police stopped her, they said she smelled like alcohol. They must have a template because they all these said smelled like alcohol, had red, watery eyes. I mean, it was the exact same phrasing on every single one.
Yeah, when we got into our big bad car accident, we got a copy of the report later, and there is actually a section that's like, did you smell alcohol? Did you, was there any visual evidence? Blah, 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 blah.
So, now what she did stagger when she got off the horse, but to be fair. When you get off a horse, how do you not stagger?
If you have a horse and you ride it everywhere, I feel like you know how to dismount.
When you're out of shape and you get off a horse, you just want to lay down and cry. Because you're like, your hip flexors are like, bitch, please.
I remember we went for a ride up in Estes Park. We went up and did that. And we did the long one. It was like 2 hours or something. And
yeah. I'm right there with you. It hurts a lot. So anyway, and it was a busy road, and she was also charged with animal neglect for endangering the safety of the horse. Good. So she blew about twice the legal limit, which is a 0.08 blood alcohol content in Florida. She blew a 1.157 and a 0.161. So county animal control seized the horse and took it to their facility. Now the reason, I'm like, do I want to? Okay, I'll come back to that. They seized control of the horse, took it to their facility. So later, a few days later, she does an interview. Because let me tell you, most of these hit, well, except for the one that happened this week. I found newspaper reports in other countries. Now they were basically word for word the exact same, but they show up in London, they show up in Australia, they show up in everywhere. They're like, look at these fucked up Americans.
What's scary is that it ends up being, it's look at the Americans. It's not look at the fucked up Floridians.
So
this is America.
So, but she did an interview. She granted an interview. And I'm like, no, I don't think you should have interviewed this lady. I'm questioning the journalistic integrity of the person doing the interview. She said she felt persecuted because the horse is her only way of getting around. It's her only mode of transportation. Apparently, she hasn't gotten the memo on the lawnmowers.
Right. Get a lawnmower.
Has nobody in Florida heard of a bicycle?
That would require pedaling.
That's very true. Okay. She said she'd only had 2 beers and that her enemies had called her in. Yeah, she was on the way to the tax store to buy spurs, and she said she would like to leave Florida. Well, yeah, I would too at that point.
Okay, cool, but try and get away with that shit somewhere that's not Florida.
Yeah. She did have prior convictions for cruelty to animals, drug possession, probation violation, and more. In December, so that was in early November, in December she lost custody of the horse.
Thank goodness.
Which, yes, I've written in parentheses, yay. And was ordered to undergo treatment for alcohol addiction. But the judge did rule that she could visit Bowduke as long as she was not intoxicated. She was originally charged with driving under the influence, but the prosecutors broadened the charge to include disorderly intoxication and charges of animal endangerment and culpable negligence.
Yeah.
Her attorney maintains that she was technically a pedestrian because a horse is not a vehicle. So a DUI doesn't apply, and is also contesting disorderly intoxication because she was leaning over on a horse, possibly asleep. While he does not dispute that this isn't safe, he also maintains it is not a crime.
It's not persecutable.
So
prosecutable.
I was never able. I wanted to know if she was ever able to regain the horse.
I hope not.
So, well, I don't know. I do not know. But so what I did was I reached out to my sister-in-law who lives in Polk County.
Okay.
Because I said, is there any way to find is there any way to find out online? Because obviously I could have called, but it was after hours. Because, time difference. I said, is there any way to find out? She works in an attorney's office. That's why I thought she might know. I said, is there any way to find out about the resolution of a case? And she goes, who do you know that got arrested in Florida? And I said, well, I don't personally know anybody. But I said, here's what I'm looking up. And she knows somebody who works for the sheriff's department and actually is one of the people who fosters the animals that are and she's like, he's brought home baby goats. And it was just like,
oh no, I get it. Florida is basically Texas.
I was like, does he still have them and can I confess?
Right.
He breaks up. So I do know that they take very good care of animals that they have to, I don't want to say repossess.
No, they kind of are.
But they take very good care of the animals that they have to take into custody, that they have to remove from their situation. So I am relieved, at least in Polk County, that there are good people doing that job. But people are just doing some fucked up shit in Florida.
Here's what's funny about that, because all the things I searched on trying to decide what to talk about today, and at one point I just found it was a list of the 100 weirdest, most recent headlines. Now, it's interesting how many times drunkenness and Taco Bell factored into the headlines.
Now, did you see the naked man? I almost included this because he appeared to be drunk, but there wasn't a vehicle involved. But there was there was a naked man who broke into a Little League office and stole their money and a package of hot dogs.
He took some wieners with his wiener out.
Yeah, he did. I don't why was he? It was like 5:00 in the afternoon. So I get being drunk at midnight and thinking it's fun to take your clothes off and commit a crime.
I guess, yeah.
But I'm like, who?
And he was hungry.
Yeah. So why at 5:00 in the afternoon? Who says I am going to shuck my shorts and break into the Little League office?
I don't know. There were so many.
Yes. And I saw stuff. When I was researching this, I saw stuff that I've seen in like thriller novels, crimes against people. And I thought, I had really hoped that this was being made up. But no. And there are people in Florida who will just fucking kill you for the hell of it, for shits and giggles. It's like Australia.
Oh no, let's not do that to Australia.
Okay. So, thus ends my. So this is just a tiny.
Oh, it's a drop.
Tiny random sampling of the mayhem.
You know why they get into more mayhem? Because they don't have cold weather. So they can just do this year round. Right now, nobody's committing mayhem outside in Colorado because there's snow.
Not naked anyway.
No. One of my friends in Texas posted today that they're getting snow.
Ooh.
It's just, in the last month, a friend of mine in Oklahoma has posted now twice they've gotten snow.
Wow.
And the first time she was excited and it was a crazy thing. And then it happened twice and she was like, what's going on?
She's like, I'm done.
What is this? No, none of that. They don't have winter jackets in places where, you know.
So, if you have unusual happenings that you would like us to investigate or talk about,
or you just want to tell us about it,
oh yeah,
and have us read it on here. Or
yes,
send that to us.
Please
send us some Florida man stories, but from other states. I want to hear the weirdest, headline in your state or your city recently.
Oh, that would be excellent. Except I almost feel like we have to eliminate New York City because bitches be crazy in New York. And I can say that because I'm from New York State.
Aha!
They're also crazy in the whole state. But yes, I think that would be delightful to get.
Yeah, send us those. And, of course, haunting stories. And
hauntings, murders, mystery.
Florida stories, period. All right, so you can send that to mysteriesmonstersmayhem@gmail.com. You can fill out the form at our website, which is www.mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com. You can visit us at our Facebook page, which is Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem. And that's also where we post our sources, our resources,
the extra
images
stuff.
And all that good stuff, and videos. When we talk about them, we try and put those on there for funsies.
I'm not going to post any of the mugshots.
No?
No, because it's just too sad.
Aww.
It really is. And I'm like, you notice all of these people I talked about, except for the teacher, except for the two at the school, they were all over 50. You know, you kind of think it's a young person's game, getting drunk and doing crazy shit. No. It is not.
No, it's a middle-aged white people.
Predominantly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. So that's who does that.
Like, what's in my future?
I realized that I'm technically middle-aged now. And I was like, whoa.
I don't think about those things.
Whoa. So there you go. All right. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us
on that thought. And we will talk at you next time.
Bye.
Bye.